everyone, welcome back to White Sparrow Living, Luke 12:6. This is Wendy. If you're new here, welcome, and I hope you'll hit that subscribe button down below and the bell right next to it so that you can be notified every time I upload a brand new video. In today's video, I'm so happy to be participating in a farmhouse open invitation playlist hosted by Heidi of Heidi DIY. So as soon as you're done here, go check out her channel. If you love all things farmhouse and Dollar Tree, I promise you won't be disappointed. I'll have her channel listed in the description box below. I hope everyone is staying safe and keeping the faith. And now that all the housekeeping is done, let's get started. For our first project, we're going to be using this canvas, and it's pretty cute the way it is, but we're going to change it up. Any branch that you can find in your yard, this is actually from an arrangement that I already had on hand. A little decorative bird from the Dollar Tree, and I like this one because he's a little bit lighter in the colors. And then some chalkboard tags, we'll just be using one. And then a teeny tiny bit of brown Spanish moss, also from Dollar Tree. A scrap piece of greenery and some flowers from Dollar Tree as well. And then some Waverly White chalk paint. And then our glue gun, scissors, screwdriver, wire cutters, a white pencil, and a white paint pen. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the canvas material off of the frame because we're just going to be using the frame itself. And so I started by just pulling them out with a screwdriver from the top and then pulling it out with the pliers. But I found that it was easier if you kind of shove it underneath the canvas, and then they seem to just pop right out because you get a better angle under the staple. And I always like to keep the leftover pieces, especially these sawtooth hangers, because those are always a good piece of hardware to keep handy. And the wood piece on the front of the canvas as well. I might use that as a sign on another DIY. So after I got it all deconstructed, I took out all of the items that I'm going to be painting, and my little bird had a broken wing, and so I needed that anyway to paint both of the wings. So I took the other one off, and his tail was a little bit long, so I took my scissors and just cut that down a bit. And then I'm going to take my chalk paint and just paint all over him. And I really like when it's covered in glitter because I don't necessarily like the shiny to show. In this case, I do let a little bit peek through, but I like the texture it has once you paint it over with white because it kind of looks like a concrete or cement look, and I really like that. So I'm just going to paint all over him and the little wings, and then I took out the clip after I painted the rest of him because I could hang on to it while I was painting. And then the canvas frame itself was made out of an MDF type of material, so it wasn't wood. But the good thing is that when I go to distress it after I put the white on the entire frame, when I sand the edges, it will have some brown peeking through. So that's the look that we want. That'll mimic the look of wood, even though it's really not. So after my bird was all dry, I took my hot glue and reattached his little wings so that he could fly again. And then I'm going to take a black Sharpie and put his eyeballs back in, because I always have a viewer that says she doesn't like when they're just all white. She likes to see the black parts of the eyes. So now I'm going to take my branch and I mark out where it will hit the sides of the frame, and I cut it a little bit larger than what the inside would be so that it can kind of wedge in there and stay put. I don't even end up having to hot glue this because it's wedged in there so well. So I took my pruning shears and just cut off the branches where I needed them to be. And these shears, as ugly as they are, they gave it a really nice straight edge so that it could go in there nicely and flat on each of the branch sides. So then I'm going to take a little bit of the Spanish moss and just kind of push it into a circle and hot glue that to the top of one of the branches. And that's going to serve as a little nest, but not a full nest, but just somewhere for him to sit so it's nice and comfy for him. And then just hot glue that all on there. And I have to hold it for a while so that it does adhere and doesn't move around. So now I'm going to take one of my tags and write in white pencil, "Be still and know," Psalm 46:10, and then I'm going to go back over it with my white paint pen. And I get all of my paint pens at Walmart, and they're pretty budget friendly. They're about $3 or $4 usually, and they last a really long time. And I usually get all different colors so that I can write on anything if I need to. Now I'm going to take my green branch and hot glue that underneath the branch so that it's kind of just flowing out like it's growing from it, just to give it a little color and some added embellishment and texture. And then I'm going to take my white flowers and just cut the teeny tops off and hot glue those to the top of my tag. And you may notice that I'm not using my cute pink stand-up glue gun, and that's because I'm doing such small work that I need the detail tip of this ugly white one that's all burnt up, and I need to get a new one with a small tip. So just try not to look at it. So now I'm going to take my tag and glue that to the upper left corner of my frame, and it is all done. And here's how it looks hanging on the wall, and I just used a command hook and put it up there. And I love how sweet this looks, and not spending much money. This came out to $2, and you can also put this on a countertop because it is flat on the bottom, and so it's very versatile. But I think it's super sweet, and just using a branch from your yard. This is actually, like I said, from an arrangement, but it has special meaning because it was from a flower arrangement from my dad's funeral back in 2006. And so, of course, you guys know I don't throw anything away, but it's not hoarding if you use it. For our next project, we're going to be using a tin can, and you can't tell by the picture, but when I pick it up, you'll be able to see it's one of the large ones. And husband went out and got rations for us and got us a whole bunch of green beans. So I'm also using a part of a candlestick that was broken that I used in another DIY for a 2-tier tray. But if you don't have this, you can use anything around the house, such as a lid from an old candle or anything that is broken. Just keep an eye out for things like that. Some blue painter's tape, some white chalk paint, and some antique wax. And then I'll be using my Silhouette Cameo 3 with some black vinyl that I get from Frisco Craft, some transfer paper and the weeding tools, and then my glue gun and some E6000. So Michael J. had already washed this out for me, knowing I could do something with it. So he took the label off and the glue is on there. And so I used my heat gun and my Cricut spatula to kind of get it off of there. And it just really kind of liquefies when you put the heat on it. And I got that tip from a few of you viewers, so thank you for that. And then I just wiped it off with a paper towel. So then once I got all the ickies off, I took my white chalk paint and just painted everything. And I did the can and I'm going to leave the can white, and I'm also going to paint the lid and then the little candlestick part, which will serve as the top of the lid. And so on this can, we have a handheld can opener. And so when you open it, it doesn't leave the jaggedy edges like the regular can openers do, where it opens it from the top. This opens it from the side where the lip is of the can, and so it's nice and smooth when it comes off. So it can still actually close and has a seal to it when you put it on top. So this can be really functional as well. So now I'm painting the handle of our can, and I'm going to make that white as well. But then I'm going to go back and do a treatment that you'll see in just a second using the antique wax. And I'm trying to get this to look like one of those really expensive canisters that has the light wood tops. So that's what I'm going to try to do. So I think this paint treatment worked out pretty well, and I think it looks a lot like wood. And I think the reason why is because I didn't let the white dry all the way before putting on the wax. So I thought it turned out pretty good. Now on these canister lids, they're usually a lot thicker. They're probably about a quarter or a half an inch wide. So in order to kind of get that look, I decided to mask it off with my blue painter's tape and then do that same effect on the top rim just to give it a little more thickness. So now I'm going to attach my candlestick to the top of my lid, and I had a sweet viewer, Brenda, recommend that I stagger the E6000 and then in between those spots put the hot glue so that the E6000 is not mixed with the hot glue, and it did work a lot better. So thank you for that, Brenda. And then I noticed my underside of my lid was not painted, so I started to just use the wax, but then it didn't cover very well because it was so slick. So I added my chalk paint and just got that kind of muddy brown color underneath. So it's not going to show, but when you lift the lid, we don't want to see uglies either. So then I measured the can to see what size to make my decal. I had a viewer ask me how to download fonts from dafont.com, and so this is a quick tutorial. You're just going to go to their website, which is www.dafont.com, and they'll have a bunch of fonts come up, the most recent uploads, I guess. And so you want to watch out for these little squares because that'll take you to a different website. So those are just ads. but I always do that. I don't know why, even though I know. So we're going to use this Be Skill font. And so you go to the right and it says download. And then over in the bottom corner where it's downloading, if you click on that, it'll take you to the actual download. And there will be two. There'll be like some rules and regulations of what not to do with it. You can't sell it unless you buy the license and so forth. And then when you click on the font itself, it'll pull it up, and up on the top on the right, well, it's on the left side, but it's the right button, it says install, and it takes that quick. It was like 3 seconds, and then it's installed into your computer. Now, if you're not going to look at it right then and you want to go back later on to get it, you can just go to your downloads by going to your bottom left button, whatever that's called, and then pull up your downloads and it'll be there. And then you can just go through those same motions of opening it up and installing it. Now, one thing you do have to do is close out your silhouette, the suite, because it won't be in your fonts unless you close it and then reopen it. And I guess that's just how it works. I don't know why. That's a computer thing. That's not my alley. So once you open the studio again, it will be up in your fonts. And so when you go to write something on a design, when you go to your design panel, you're just going to write something in. And so I'm going to write Be the Light, and then you're going to highlight it and then go look for your fonts. This is not a very clear view, but you get the idea. And so you'll see Be Skill, I think was the name of it. And so once you click it, and your words do have to be highlighted for it to change, and then it'll move to that font, and then there you have it. And you can do whatever you want with that pretty design. And I really like that font, by the way. So maybe I'll use that in our next DIY. So for this one, I'm using something that I purchased from my Silhouette store, and they have different fonts and designs that you can purchase when you have the Silhouette. And so I purchased this one, and so I didn't even have to design it, but I will also have it available in my Etsy shop. But I think it's super cute. It's a little farmhouse sign, and so I'm just going to pull off the vinyl and weed out the letters, and then I'll put my transfer tape on top of it. And I get my transfer tape. It's not really transfer tape. It's actually shelf paper, and it's clear, but it's the best transfer tape I've ever used. I'm sure there's others out there that are really good, but this is just what I've been used to since I was told to use it, and others were having good luck with it. So I get it all the time, and so it works really well. When you're pulling up your vinyl, if you get a little too much in your hand and you start losing a little bit of control, and things can get stuck because the vinyl will stick to the vinyl, and it's just a mess. I kind of cut them off so that I can get a handle on it again. Usually I'll use my utility knife and score lines in the vinyl, but I didn't with this one, so this is just another option to help you when you're pulling your vinyl off. So now I'm going to attach this to the front of my can, and because it's got the ridges and it's kind of corrugated, I didn't want it to completely get on there because I want to be able to push the vinyl into those grooves. And so after I got the transfer tape off, there were some spots that weren't all the way down, but I wanted it that way so that I could then go in with my heat gun. Again, another suggestion by a sweet viewer, Michelle, who recommended that I use a heat gun anytime I'm trying to transfer something onto either a really porous surface or something like this where it needs some additional work to get it into those grooves. So I just use the heat gun and it just sucks it up right into the little grooves, and it's perfect and is not going anywhere. So here's how it turned out, and I think it looks so adorable. And if you put it next to my cutting boards, that looks like wood, you guys, don't you think? If I do say so myself, because I'm not really a fan of my own painting, so my painting skills are getting better, I think. So, and you can see that this candle holder has a crack on it, which is why I had cut it off from the project that I did before. But you know how I feel about cracks and brokenness too. So I think it looks great. If I didn't do the design, so I can't take credit for that, but I hope you guys like it. Okay, so while I was working on my projects here, I'm going to show you something. This is an old picture from before we moved into this house, and this is the fireplace and kind of the entertainment center in the living room. And I did what I could with it after moving in, but if you can see, the shelves are completely asymmetrical and don't make sense. They're different sizes. And so because Michael J is not working because of the virus, of course, he is not one that will sit around and do nothing. So he took it upon himself. Well, I mean, I urged him a little bit, but he is redoing our fireplace, and he's actually done with it now. So you'll get to see the finished product, but he killed it on this. It turns out so pretty. There was so much work involved, but he just went at it and got this beam. Well, we've had this beam for like about 2 years, and it was sitting on the side of the house. It's actually from a nearby pier at the beach, Pismo Beach. There's a famous, well, it's the Pismo Pier, and they reconstructed it or redid it. And so they took some pieces down. And so our neighbor across the street had this piece of wood, and so Michael J used it as the mantelpiece, and I love this. It's so pretty, and it has special meaning too because it's from the Pismo Coast Pier. And so anytime he's doing some kind of construction, he always writes messages in fun areas. So 100 years from now, when somebody finds or takes this down, they'll find that. Anyway, so he worked 3 days. It took 3 days to do this. And so he completely changed the whole look of that area. And I am so in love with it. And you'll see how it turns out in just a second. But I am so proud of my husband. But I think you guys will like seeing this. And here's how this turned out, and as you can see, it is stunning. I'm so excited and it makes my heart so happy. So I just wanted to share that with you guys because you had said that you wanted to see my shiplap wall in the dining room, and so here you go. So while he was doing this also, as you may have noticed, I haven't posted in about a week because I made the mistake of starting to organize some things in my craft room, and then it just went all the way and I couldn't stop. And so if you want to see my craft room in another video, let me know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in. It's pretty organized, and I don't know, maybe a little too organized, but it's pretty neat now and it's super fun to work in here. And so most of it's all Dollar Tree stuff that I use for my organizing. So maybe it'll give you some inspiration if you need to get some organization in your craft room. Okay, so for our next project, we're going to be using some toilet paper rolls. And I used to save these before the whole toilet paper rationing situation. Some of these half wood beads that I got from Amazon, and I will have that linked in the description box below. Some of the Waverly wax in antique and a regular paintbrush. And then also for the middle part of our medallion, you can use this from Dollar Tree. I found this piece of wood. I have no idea what it's from, but I think it was maybe in a package of wood parts. So then our hot glue gun, scissors, ruler, and a pencil. And so all I did was get the toilet paper off of the toilet paper rolls. After I got them all ready, I painted them with the Waverly wax in antique. And there were a few of them that were white. So hopefully if you do this project, you can find some that are white. I don't know what brand or anything or why they're white and the others are not, but anyway, I did some of the rolls in a darker brown and then others in a little bit lighter, just so that there would be an assortment of lights and darks. So now I'm going to take my ruler and a pencil, and I just made a mark at every 1/2 inch measurement so that I could then go back in with my scissors and make 1/2 inch rings, and hopefully they would be close to the same width on all of them. This was a tube that I had from some mesh that I finished, and so I just keep these every now and then if it looks pretty sturdy, but you could use like a wrapping paper roll or anything. I just wanted to have a little bit different size for part of this medallion. So to start this out, I took a perfect circle and made it a little bit thicker so that that could be the base, so to speak. And I just took 10 of the pieces and made them into kind of a leaf shape. And so using my hot glue, I'm going to glue those together and then glue them at the tip onto the base ring. And I'm going to do that all the way around. It took a total of 10 of the little leaf shaped ones, and then at the very end I'm going to glue on both sides and the point, and then I'm going to keep building from there with different shapes and colors, and it's going to be fun to watch. For this row, I'm going to fold my piece over, and I want it to be uneven, so one side will be shorter than the other, and so the short side is going to go toward the long piece, if that makes sense. There were some spots where the hot glue kind of seeped out, so I just took my utility knife and cut those pieces off. And then I'm going to add my half beads to each of the long pieces all the way around, and then I'll put my center piece in the middle. So to hang it, I'm just going to take a scrap piece of chenille stem, and I folded it over in half and wrapped it at the bottom, and then just used some hot glue and stuck it in there and let that dry. And here it is all done, and this might be one of my favorites of all time. I think it is so pretty, and it reminds me of the old-fashioned quilling, you know, where you take the little papers and you roll them up and use glue to attach them to make a picture or something or a design. But I love this because the colors just make it look like wood, and then with those beads on there, it's just a whole other dimension. So I love this, especially against my white shiplap wall. I had actually tried putting this on a pedestal, and it looked like a real fancy wood cake plate. So obviously it's not sturdy enough to hold anything, but if you put a piece of cardboard or something underneath it to make it more sturdy, this is a gorgeous cake plate. So anyway, I love it, and I hope you guys like it too. So for our final project, I'm going to be using 3 of these terracotta pots and the saucers that go underneath. And I got these at Walmart, so you can get them at Dollar Tree as well. And also this tin sign from Dollar Tree and some Waverly white chalk paint. And so all I did was painted the pots, and I did all of the outside and the inside and the little saucers. I love painting terracotta because it just dries really quickly and it gives a good coverage, and it is very forgiving. And these pots are actually a tad bigger than the ones from Dollar Tree. And the saucers I actually got at Home Depot. So I don't think I've ever seen the saucers at Dollar Tree. And Walmart might have them, but I just got those later at Home Depot. So anyway, I'm just going to paint everything on the tops, bottoms, all around, and inside. So now I'm going to take my tin sign and I'm going to cut that, and it's really flimsy, but the edges are doubled over, so I had to use my shears to get through that. And then I'm going to cut through the rest of the way with my scissors. And so I'm going to make tags for each of the pots, and so all I did was cut little rectangles with my scissors. And originally I was going to put these on the front center of the pots, but because it's tapered down towards the bottom, it just sat a little crooked, so it didn't look right. So instead, I'm going to make them a little bit thinner and then place them at the top on the rim. So as I'm trying to write, my grandson kind of caused an earthquake by hitting my camera. And so anyway, I just wrote basil, thyme, and sage on each of the tags. And then to give them some kind of rivet or some way of attaching to the pot instead of just being flat with nothing on it, I decided to put some tacks on each of the ends of the tags. And so to do that, I just took a nail and made a little hole so that when I place my tack on the tin, there's a little piece that doesn't come off when you cut it off with your wire cutters. And so that has to go somewhere so that it'll lay flat on the tin. So I just put that inside the little hole after I put hot glue on the bottom of that tack. You'll see what I mean. So because these pots don't have holes at the bottom for drainage, I just took some of these blue rocks from Dollar Tree and then took my herbs and stuck them into the pots. You guys know I have a black thumb, but I really needed these for the kitchen because we do use a lot of fresh herbs, and it doesn't hurt that it's super cute too. And here's how they turned out, and I think they are so adorable. And this was the easiest of all of the projects. You could use some paint and do some distressing or some sanding to make it more rustic looking, but I just like the crispness of the white every now and then, especially with the green. But this is also functional, and you could make it just decorative if you wanted. And you could also use your cutting machine to make the tags. If you don't want to use the tin, you don't have to. You could just write it right onto the pots. And if you're using the same herbs all the time, it won't matter. So I think this turned out super, super cute. And here they are all together, all 4 of the projects. And I think there's just an added dose of satisfaction when you're using recycled goods that otherwise would just go into the trash. So we're helping to save the earth as well and making our homes beautiful. Don't forget to go check out Heidi's channel, and I'll have that linked in the description box below, as well as the Open Invitation Farmhouse playlist where a lot of other YouTubers are doing DIYs and all kinds of fun stuff. So on this Good Friday, that'll give you something else to do. I hope everyone enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure you click everything down below except for the thumbs down button. Comment and let me know what you thought, and don't forget to check out Facebook and Instagram, and I'll have those all linked in the description box below, as well as my Etsy shop under White Sparrow Living. So until next time, I hope everybody has a blessed day, and remember to always be the light. Bye!